the service realization cycle. Now, what are the other avenues that we use to ensure that performance, success stories from individuals who have gone through the pipeline from being severe substance use disorder persons to fully recovered, forms a repository for reporting actions that are needed to be done by the agency. Chief guests to be done by the agency. Chief guests today and being here part of this third RAA is also in itself a performance measure, and the internal customers who are inter-agency players. Secondly, it's the nature of the problem that we are dealing with. We must appreciate that alcohol and drug abuse is since the proclamation by His Excellency the President. And just to assess the impact of what has happened from utilizing the informal performance feedback making against alcohol and drug abuse, that we have a stronger national visibility. We've been elevated as a national priority, and it has come with its attendant responsibility because the phones are ringing off the hook when wananchi need services. We also have used the data from our performance measurements to influence policy, and as in our space, we've also enhanced our multi-agency synergy amongst all the agencies that have been involved. I want to highlight agency. Regulatory institutions like ours must have a human face. We must appeal to the wananchi emotionally, and we need scientifically tested instruments must be deployed. Now, what is the way forward and what can be done where we sit, our vantage view on the way forward? First of all, we need to develop, and we're in the process of such that the PC should not be seen as a separate monitoring and evaluation instrument away from the normal course of evaluating within an organization. Fourth is the strengthening of the multi-agency evaluation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Head of Public Service and Chief of Staff, the PSS present, my fellow regulators. And that question is, do you have any performance measurements outside the government performance? And then how do we do it? And what has been the outcome? Electricity Regulatory Index. And this Electricity Regulatory Index has got 3 composite measurements we do. The first one is call it how well the electricity sector regulators are carrying out their mandate by developing and implementing the practices and processes, the stakeholders, accountability, transparency, and open to information. Then we go to the next measurement is the regulatory framework we have come up in place. How has it affected their performance as the utilities will regulate? Like I'm referring to here, EPRA. I know you know us for one bad maybe mandate which we do to the consumers, the degree to which the regulators has a positive or negative impact on the sectors we regulate. And you go to the next slide. 2018, we have been the top 5. Next slide. 2018, we have been the top 5. Last year alone, I think we tied with Senegal. If we check there, we tied with Senegal. If we check there, the scores are the same, but we are ranked number outcome index. This is where now under the East African community, all the regulators under the East African community have come together under an association called Energy Regulatory Association of Self, the performance Energy Regulatory Association of Self. The performance of the various utilities we do, we regulate, and Kenya is being we regulate, and Kenya is been doing well also. If you check at the utility doing well also, if you check at the utility financial performance of the sector, Kenya has been doing very well. The financial performance of the sector, Kenya has been doing very well. Number one ones. Then now we can go to the next slide, where I'll talk about the impact. From these 2 peer reviews, what have we learned? From these 2 peer reviews, what have we learned as a country? what have we learned as this? Because without a good, what have we learned as this? Because without a good regulatory framework, we cannot execute our mandate. And this has also helped us, we cannot execute our mandate. And this has also helped us attain what's called financial sustainability and independence of the regulator. Our neighboring regulators. We also have improved on the LPG strategy and surveillance. We also have improved on the LPG strategy and surveillance. We have also improved the energy efficiency program. In Kenya, we are running a very energy efficiency program. In Kenya, we are running a very which we have done as Kenya. That helps us now to promote e-mobility. That helps us now to promote e-mobility. Then you have also launched the e-electric vehicle charging and battery UK. Launched the e-electric vehicle charging and battery UK. You was done with the in Brazil, and also we are still in Brazil, and also we are still trying to scout to see how we can have an MOU with the regulator of Singapore, where we were.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'll be brief. Allow me to briefly introduce the Nairobi International Financial Center Authority. NIFCA is a state corporation under the National Treasury, established to position Nairobi as a leading financial and investment hub for Africa by attracting global capital, supporting innovation, and enhancing Kenya's competitiveness as a gateway into the continent. In many ways, our mandate sits at the intersection of finance, investment promotion, policy coordination, and economic transformation under the economic vision of Kenya, which is Vision 2030. And of course, like all public institutions, we fully comply with the standing and national treasury oversight. Those frameworks are critical because they create discipline, governance, and accountability within public service. We were sitting here a few minutes begin measuring real impact on the ground, because increasingly institutions are being asked a much harder question. Not are you a capital markets authority supports new market products and reforms. The broader goal is deeper capital formation and increased investor participation. And similarly for us at NIFCA, or partnership signed. It is measured by whether global firms choose Nairobi, whether international capital is flowing into Kenya, whether regional headquarters are being established here, whether financial and technology ecosystems are expanding, and whether Nairobi is increasingly being recognized within the global financial center conversations and frameworks such as the World Alliance of International Financial Centers. Because ultimately, regulation should stimulate growth, confidence, and economic activity. Number two is measuring speed and ease of service delivery. Sometimes institutions measure process completion internally, while citizens and investors measure frustration externally. Those are not increasingly have to ask, do businesses trust the system? Do you trust your own system? Do citizens feel served? These people are saying, are we carrying them along with us? Do they see strategic industries? Which means regulators can no longer think only administratively. We must think strategically. And these are the questions we should all keep.
Let's put our hands together for the four presenters. They've done an amazing job on the thematic areas. And now to the final session of today. We'll have the reflections from different people working within the office of the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service. As they are setting up on stage, I'll be calling upon Ms. Wanjiku Wakogi, that is the Head of Public Entities Oversight Office. That microphone is not behaving in a Singapore way. So I'll be calling upon Ms. Wanjiku Wakogi to take of time so that we can give our reflections, and if indeed the presentations that have been made today are speaking to our number one client, who is the city.
Okay. Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, all protocols observed. With 7 minutes, I'll try and be really quick. We were guided to evaluate the presentations made by the 4 agencies vis-a-vis the presentation made by Duncan a little bit earlier on the approach and the focus of our interventions going forward and their responsiveness to the citizens. So having listened really quickly to the 4 presentations, and beginning with PPRA and my good friend Wanjoki, when I listened to your presentation on the focus, I think the first person who needs to tell us if they are happy with your services would be the people in this room, isn't it? Because they're the ones who would tell us whether they are comfortable with what PPRA does, whether when you write a letter and you say that you are available to offer technical support, that is enough for them to come looking for you and you are going to cause behavioral change. I think it's important as we engage, we ask ourselves who the customer is. And in the case for PPRA, as you went through your engagement, I asked myself, okay, interesting. Are the interventions you are undertaking then still looking like the policeman approach that puts fear of God into the procurement officers, that we are unable to change and become the champions that we are looking for? So as we execute, and we were guided a little bit in the morning, that that's the approach we need to take. I told myself maybe that's one of the things we need to urge ourselves. For NACADA, my good friend Omerikwa, your actions, your indicators look like the indicators that were on the left side of the screen, isn't it? The ones measuring licensing, the ones measuring number of, what are they called? How many times you go and do a raid? How many times you are arresting? And yet the social problem that is alcohol requires a very citizen-centric approach. So as we engage and design, how have we established a mechanism that handholds our manufacturers, that they are able to implement these actions that they are supposed to do in a manner that leads them to progressive realization of our regulatory targets? I think the same point with regards to EPRA, the question would be raised if Kenyans, and especially manufacturers, who are usually the ones with the greatest challenge, would manufacturers be happy with the assessment that EPRA is number 1 or number 2 ranking when it comes to their regulatory impact? Have you been engaging them with the concerns that they have about the cost of electricity? Have we been able to find out whether our Juakali associations are able to get the best out of the electricity regime that is in place? Because that's the approach that will cause the change. That is the impact approach that we need to adopt. For NIFCA, I was a little bit conflicted. I am curious as to whether you are a regulator or not, and I know Simon maybe might clarify that a little bit more, but I agree fully with your submissions on the approach that we should take. So in summary, I would only want to ask us to focus, as has been suggested in the presentation in the morning, on identifying who the customer is. Who, as regulators, is our customer? Is it the manufacturer that we are licensing, or the professional that is coming for a certification, or is it the citizen? Because if our advantage is the citizen, then our activities will change a little bit. We will be interested in making sure that they are receiving the services they need, that our actions are impacting on them. And so that's one of the key important aspects we need to ask ourselves. Will you be measuring therefore licenses and levies and revenue, or will you be measuring how many houses have collapsed? How many cases of poisoning have we had of this year? How many incidences of accidents have occurred. Because if we change that vantage point, then we are likely to then receive this. I think the second issue has been raised on data, and the question has been asked, are we deliberately designing data collection in the execution of our projects? Because that's one of the most important things we have to ask ourselves. If we design a data collection mechanism in every step of project execution, then we will be able to do the survey a little bit easier. And I believe that's one of the hardest things that we're struggling with today. And that's why we sometimes even get different data sources giving us different positions on projects that we're implementing. So in the execution, I think that's one of the recommendations that has been made. The third one is the regulatory posture. Our regulatory posture needs to be more hand-holding, even as we do police enforcement. There are very many people who want to do the right thing. They want to progressively realize the achievement of the right thing. As regulators, how much more are we doing to hold their hands, to bring them to a level of compliance before we bring out the big stick and the compliance conversation? Can we do that in a concurrent manner? These are some of the suggestions that have come out from the presentation in the morning. And the last point would be on joint action. A mechanism of joint action allows us to use each other's strengths to our benefit. A joint engagement also allows us to see where we are duplicating. Is DOSH and the Ministry of Health doing exactly the same thing as the county government in issuing licenses for businesses? Is NEMA and WRA and county licensing the same sand harvesting? Can we find mechanisms to make it a little bit easier for execution of our actions? This will also help us to manage disputes, because a lot of the times the disputes we are handling are disputes between regulatory entities. One person's action is impacting the second entity's interventions. So as we execute, these are the aspects that will allow us to be predictable and to therefore deliver on the impact and the outcomes. Thank you very much, Colin.
I think I'll stand so that I can project better. Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, distinguished guests, I listened very carefully to the presentations by the regulatory authorities, and I'd like to reflect on 4 emerging themes at a very broad and strategic level, perhaps also so that that can support the planning of the regulatory authorities, as well as support in enriching our evaluating and tracking tools. The first emerging issue is the operating space. Regulators are increasingly operating in highly dynamic, competitive, and rapidly evolving environment. And the reality today is that regulatory institutions are no longer operating in static sectors. They are regulating markets where private sector firms are continuously transforming themselves towards greater efficiency, digitization, innovation, and customer responsiveness. And so as regulators, this presents an important question. Are our measurement frameworks evolving at the same speed as the markets we regulate? So one has to pay attention to the dynamism of the markets. Because if markets are evolving in real time, but regulation is only measuring compliance retrospectively, then there's a risk that institutions may appear administratively successful, like we saw the MACs, while missing emerging risks, inefficiencies, and market shifts on the ground. And that is why this conference is important. So the issue is no longer simply whether institutions are compliant with performance contracting, SCAC evaluations, or statutory reporting obligations, including the various tracking tools. The issue is whether regulation is producing measurable outcomes and public value. I believe the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service alluded to this, as well as the Deputy President in the morning. For example, is regulation reducing the cost of doing business? Is it improving consumer confidence? Is it accelerating investment decisions? Is it improving efficiency and service delivery? Is it supporting enterprise growth? Is it strengthening public trust? So these are increasingly real indicators of regulatory impact on the ground, what you call V2QA ground. And perhaps what we should consider in future, perhaps next year, what we should consider is have the citizens report back on how regulation affects them. The second emerging issue, the second emerging theme from my notes is regionalization and cross-border competitiveness. Regionalization and cross-border competitiveness. Today, corporations are increasingly operating across multiple jurisdictions. We now have companies like KCB Group operating across East Africa, and regional players such as Taifa Gas. If you had a chance to listen to the deliberations at the Dar es Salaam Parliament, where the president gave a speech, you heard that Taifa Gas is interested in investing in Kenya. So that's an example. There's a KCB Group, there's Taifa Gas, for example, expanding investments across interconnected markets. And this is especially for institutions like EPRA to ask themselves, are you COMESA compliant? Are you aligned to the COMESA protocols? Are you aligned to the ESC protocols? And what are you doing so that increasingly regulation is uniform across region, so that investments can be moved beyond our national borders? And so this means that regulation can no longer be viewed purely from a domestic perspective. Increasingly, the efficiency, predictability, and responsiveness of regulators influence regional investment flows and competitiveness. So investors today, especially if one is to attract FDI flows, investors today compare regulatory environments across countries. And these are the questions they ask. What are the turnaround times, predictability of decisions, cost of compliance, transparency, digitalization of services, and dispute resolution efficiency? And so in many respects, regulators themselves are becoming strategic contributors to national competitiveness and are better. The third emerging theme from my notes is the growing importance of technology, data, and AI in regulatory oversight. And I was pleased to hear from NACADA on the progress that they've made on technology, on the use of dashboards, etc. And this the growing importance of technology, data, generally in regulatory oversight. And so the argument here is that institutions must become more adaptive, technologically aware, and future-facing. And so for regulators, this means moving from delayed reporting towards real-time regulatory intelligence through the use of, for example, dashboards, as NACADA is doing. Today, AI and digital systems can support regulators to monitor consumer trends, identify procurement anomalies, PPRA alluded to that, detect market distortions, monitor pricing behaviors, strengthen compliance monitoring, and anticipate emerging systemic risks early. And this is particularly important because the complexity of markets is now moving faster than traditional oversight mechanisms. So the disclaimer here, the nota bene here is technology must remain anchored on governance, on ethics, on transparency, and accountability. I'll make my last point. Finally, the last emerging theme is that institutions are increasingly being judged not only by compliance, but by trust, the soft issues of sustainability, societal impact, the human face. I think someone referred to the human face and perhaps the human touch. This aligns closely with ESG thinking. The real measure of regulation is no longer institutional activity alone. I believe the Chief of Staff alluded to that earlier this morning. It is whether regulation is creating sustainable public value, supporting inclusive growth, protecting citizens, enabling responsive and responsible investment, strengthening environmental sustainability, and improving confidence in public institutions. So ladies and gentlemen, The future regulator must increasingly become impact-driven, technologically intelligent, regionally competitive, economically enabling, and citizen-centered. Because ultimately, the true measure of regulation is not on the volume of activity undertaken by institutions, but the measurable transformation experienced by citizens, businesses, and the economy on the ground. And that is the essence of this conference. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Leah. Clearly, I'm not going to repeat what my two sisters have spoken to. I'll take us back to Wanjiku, because I want to believe everyone here, however much we paint the international picture, what people think, or how we evaluate ourselves internally, it goes back to what the citizens feel. So I want to start by saying that your regulatory role is a power role. Actually, when you hear about a regulator, the first thing that comes whether your business continues to exist. They will determine whether we are going to open up markets. They determine whether to be on the road or not. And so the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what does one institution? And I know from the presentations that we have had here, I've heard everyone say that we have done very well, we've done 100%. Internally reviewing how you think you've complied with the internal benchmarks of how government has decided to evaluate you. But I want you to just exercise it beyond the internal expectation. And for example, for EPRA, I want to believe Engineer Okech is still here. I would like to know, if we go to Embakasi today, where we had a blast and we had several Kenyans lose life, when we go back to the people of Embakasi, and I know PS Omolo here has been interacting with them quite for some time, what have we done to make sure that we have stopped one of those things that caused that occurrence? When we hear of the many accidents on the road, and we have the indicators of saying we have reduced road accidents, news, I hear Wanjiku asking, where is government? And so I want to really borrow a lot from the comments of His Excellency, the Deputy President earlier, and request that in our, let be our the fourth conference that we'll be having next year, we would like to see actual impact that can be evaluated. And I want to believe, since you've said you have your own internal measurement tools, I believe that you already have an entry point. I'm expecting that we leave this place with the expectation that we will have a baseline of how, as a regulator, you have an entry position of how the market looks like. If it is Nakada, and I know Omerikwa is one of those people I call every other time, because our neighbors call to say people are abusing drugs around our premises. When you ask them, they say that the license has already been given by the county government, and so my hands are tied. And that's why even in one of the sections that we were discussing this morning, and I was discussing with my team there, is it possible for us in the coming year to have sectoral compliance performance indicators? Can the Ministry of Transport, for example, give us the way they have approached compliance from NTSA to the people who give licenses to Ngao here? How are the police helping NTSA to comply? Or you will have NTSA introduce compliance measurements that are contradictory to what Ngao has. So I want to challenge us that in the next conference that we will have, let us now go to actual data on impact, the impact of the decisions that we made. I like what the DG or PPRA, in your presentation, you've indicated that if you were to optimally operate, you are able to save for Kenya 15% of its annual budget. I want to believe those are not just figures. I want to believe they are data-driven, factual data. So we want to see from your regulatory operations, how did you help the government to save on monies that they would have lost if certain processes were actually taken were it not for your intervention? So all of us that are here today, I just want to request that the next time when we meet here, let's have actual impact derived from data. I challenge you that when you go back today, develop a baseline criteria. So next year, I'm happy today, Linda, at least none of them came to explain to us their mandate. Because in the second conference, everyone was coming to tell us what KEBS does, what NACADA does. But today, at least they have moved from their mandate to actual measurement, which we've said it should be consistent. Then the next level of evaluation that we should be looking at is the actual impact of the interventions that you introduced that have caused either Wanjiko to get better services more efficiently. And remember, we are going to an election period. So when we go back to Wanjiko, we want to hear, what did Mamo do? Like what we are doing in Nairobi River. You went and worked on some construction buildings. You enforced some level of compliance around Gikomba. Lakini ukielekea pale where the floods did some destruction recently, you still find buildings that are actually on the riparian area, but you have not touched. So when we go to Kawangware, the people of Kawangware will say, hiyo serikali ni ya watu wadosi, sisi wengine wenye tuko huku chini, hatuwezi tukaguzwa. So I'm expecting that those are the kind of real enforcement and compliance indicators that we are going to introduce and use it as a benchmark for improvement in our institutions. Thank you very much and God bless you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Can we all stand up? No, I'm a certified governance trainer. And somebody said here, Baba used to say, carry people along. I have looked, Ndugohari, PS, when you are here is when you know we have a problem. People ate food for lunch. Me, I just ate rice and chapati. People are struggling. Can we do something? Oh, this place is called Kwavonza. Can you say Kwavonza? Now I want us to write the name Kwavonza. Kwavonza, write it. So can we do with the left hand? Okay, K, very good. W, A, then Vonza, V, O, N, Z, A. Now, stand. I want us to write it with our body. Kwanza kiuno. Hebu shika kiuno. Can we write K? Hey, do it. You have to write K. You know me, sina mambo mingi. Possibly this is the only thing I will do. Okay. Can we write K? Okay. Kwa. W. A. Write V. O. N. Z. A. Very good class. Can we appreciate yourselves? Thank you so very much, colleagues. We've had a wonderful time. That's what we usually do during the inductions and capacity building workshops that we have. I want to, first, Madam Wanjiku Wakogi is my predecessor. She was the secretary of SCAC. And she did a very good, literally, when she went through, I said, oh my God, there's nothing I will say. But something came to me. You know, if we have one of the smartest lawyers in this country, and I can tell you for free, it's Wanjiku. Can we appreciate Wanjiku? Then she failed to do one thing. I was seated next to my friend, Professor Makau Metua. And what he did, you know, I talked to him. I was with Madam Regina Ombam. She's my girlfriend officially. And so we told him to speak in English. But when he came here, what he did, most of the things that I wrote, let me tell you, I could hardly hear. So I expected Madam Wanjiku to do something, some justice to that presentation of Professor Makau Metua. Now, I'll tell, because I have to, that was a presentation of a sort. You know, he said something like ethnic calumny. So I wrote calumny, K-A-L, I don't know what it is, ethnic calumny. Then he talked of hey, I'm telling you. But why am I citing him? He's a great man in this country. And according to me, if you listened to him very carefully, he set the constitutional imperatives for what we are doing here today. So, Chair, Chair, B.S. Raymond Omolo, you know, since you are the next to the seat of the chair, you are now by default the chair of this session. And you are a great man, by the way. You know, since I have little to do, I'm just saying things that don't matter. But you are a great man. P.S. Raymond Omolo, I knew him when he was such a nice young man, and he is very harmless but very brilliant. He was a CEO of LBD. He walked through very successfully as a CEO. So, Chair, what Professor Makau took us through was very phenomenal. It was not just that social foundations of law. He talked about stuff, and the first one that, you know, when he was talking about matters politics and about states can either be benign or malign, and that Kenya has oscillated between the two based on the nature of government. I was writing those things. But he said something that is so critical, that we need to decolonize the state. How many people had that? We need to thank you, P.S. Mweke. We need to decolonize the state. And he said that in a country you can have citizens or subjects. Thank you. I'm talking to regulators, by the way. And he said, as regulators, we need to make sure that we are serving citizens and not subjects. And he went further to buttress the need for us to enhance and make true and sure the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. As regulators, we are the government that people see on the ground, not the ngaos. Regulators, you are the people that are government and that people on the ground see. I'm saying this because I know that we need to ask for forgiveness. We have not done it right. We have been the bosses of the people. And so, what Professor talked about to me, he laid a very firm foundation for us. I would want to, the presentations that have taken place here, starting from Dr. Linda and Alex, they did a very good job, and Duncan came to give a kind of scorecard, and we are talking about regulating for impact. How can we regulate for impact? In my view, when we talk about impact for regulators, we should be talking about one thing that belongs to the PS, industry, PS trade, and we are talking about the ease of doing business. The rating of Kenya as an investment destination depends mainly on the environment that exists for the ease of doing business. And that's where we fail. Most of the regulators here, there are CEOs that I've talked to, and they talk about, do you know we have raised now our A&A from 200 million to 1.2 billion. I usually change the subject very easily because I don't want to rebuke you. We are not as regulators in the business of raising money. When we talk about the ease of doing business, we are looking about, let me just say, about 4 or 5 fundamental things. Number one, the reduction in the cost of doing business. The reason Kenyans are very bitter with a system, with a president that is so innocent, he came into place when all the charges levied on petroleum products were already there. He's not the one, it's the law. We have made it so hard for people to do business because of the inhibitive costs that regulators charge for the business. So that one, for me, the impact of doing business, the impact of regulation should have that as a measure. How much have we reduced on the cost of doing business? Number 2, public engagement. And it came out very well. Kicham brought it. We have to engage people. In fact, if you are a regulator, I would take advantage of, assume even some big regulator like NCA, National Construction Authority. I would take advantage and ride on the presence of Nyumba Kumi so that there is self-regulation. Go for how much are you bringing industry to regulate itself within your space so that you engage the public to assist in regulation and also the investors and players. How much are you still the one alone wielding the rungu in the marketplace? That is wrong. We have to automate licensing. Once a person has fulfilled the conditions for licensing, why can't they just go to their laptops or whatever and print a license? Why should they come to your offices to look for licenses? And that's how toll stations exist in some of the regulatory agencies. Because if you have an officer in a locked place, a person comes for a license to enter into that officer's office, you have created a toll station. Why? Make it easy. Let people serve themselves with licenses once they have met the regulations. So if you have not automated your licensing regime, that is again a problem. So we are talking about impact. Another thing is to have a corruption perception index. That one you can, it's not EACC to do it. You can actually do. You can actually do it by yourselves. Another issue is, and unfortunately, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service has left. We had an engagement with him with the research institutions, and he used words I think apply marketplace and asked Wanjiku, not our Wanjiku Wakoki. You know what Wanjiku means? And they tell me they don't know you. I will come and close you up. That should apply more to the regulators. Public you, because you have been established, number one, as a grievance settlement mechanism, so that if people are aggrieved within the industry, the service or product, they come to you. So if they don't know you exist, so how much, if I went to where I started my work, the far-flung area of Marsabit in Loyangalani, if I went to Loyangalani, and which I want to do, and I have you, recently I engaged, I was telling Dr. Luga, the PS for medical services, I had an engagement with an institution very powerful called the Counselors Everywhere you go now, pastors and everybody, they are counselors. And they are counseling especially on marriage. And if you go there, they know it very well. Just go there if you are a man or a woman with a problem. They will tell you, I'm the solution. You don't get it. Now, you know that anybody engaging in matters relating to counseling or psychology, they need to be licensed. Possibly not. So public awareness becomes a very critical ingredient. How many people do you know that I exist? And that should be a very critical benchmark of your impact. And lastly, sorry I've taken so long, but global competitiveness does not mean you compare yourself with our neighbors. You know, the president did a he said Kenya cannot compare. Within this region, if you are in Kenya and you compare yourself with Burundi, surely. So we have to be globally competitive, and our bench. Allow me now, Chair. I wanted to recognize my board. You know, my board is here. The chairman has left. He had a serious engagement in Nairobi. Can my board members just stand? Skak, please. And that gentleman, thank you very much. Shukran.
Good afternoon. I think after such an interesting exposition and after the very powerful presentations by the ladies before me, my work has been made very easy. But I will have something to say. And I'll base my comments on the presentation by Professor Makau. I was also quite taken in by his powerful presentation this morning. And he put the citizen at the center of everything that we do as regulatory authorities. And he asked a couple of questions which I think are worth repeating, even if they are paraphrased. He asked that we consider what is the purpose of your job as a regulatory. Do you serve the citizens? And how do you submit yourself to the citizens? How do you put yourself at the center? How do you put the citizen at the center of everything you do? From that, I extrapolated the question, which I felt that regulatory authorities should answer, which is, are you necessary? There was a mischief that the state sought to cure when it created the 129 regulatory agencies. Do you check, do you assess annually to see if that mischief is still there? Are you still necessary? Because that is the first question to answer in determining whether you are necessary and in determining, therefore, whether you are serving the citizen. Professor Mutua also asked us to consider whether we are promoting or we are seeking the happiness of the citizen. Are we promoting, are we supporting the happiness of the citizen? And that made me ask, or made me seek to ask, is what we do in our regulation harmful to the citizen? How much does it cost the citizen to comply with the regulations that we enforce? Over and above how much it costs us to enforce the regulations, over and above that, how much does it actually cost the citizen to comply? And do we measure that? I think it's something that we need to measure. I liked Mr. Kichambu's presentation when he referred to quality over quantity, measuring quality even as we measure quality, because I think that speaks to the core of what we need to be doing. So based on that, using that therefore as a background, as I was looking through these presentations, I thought, why don't I subject the presentations to the test, to one test only? And the test is, how much do the regulatory agencies that presented make the citizen happy? Is there any effort, is there any work, is there any trend towards making the citizen happy from the presentations? So starting with Mr. Omerikwa's very good presentation, and I tried to be positive in my assessment. I liked Mr. Omerikwa's presentation that NACADA is making a philosophical shift, moving from command and control regulation to regulation that focuses on social impact. So Omerikwa told us that he's moving away from counting how many licenses have been issued, how many crackdowns have been done, to monitoring, to tracking recovery rates, to tracking relapse rate, to monitoring rehabilitation success stories. So moving from this command and control to the soft social value that we seek. And I think he has found a way to answer the question, how do we make citizens happy? And I thought that's something to point out. I think we need to acknowledge that doctrinal shift from NACADA, the shift that moves from process to focus on people. In PPRA, Mr. Wanjuki, he talks about the administrative state, which is what Professor referred to the regulatory agencies. He tells us, and it's something that really, I think I want to highlight, that when the administrative state does its work well, money is saved, money is available for social services. So the money that is used in the administrative state, when the administrative state utilizes that money well, in his case, he talks about 15% of the current budget being available, therefore, to redirect to social services. And I think that is something to highlight, giving us, in a way, the important thing here is that if your machine is efficient, then the happiness accrues from that happiness of the machine. I think he also showcases tools for transparency, which are important in making the citizen happy. EPRA, I think, illustrates the tension between technical competence and social equity. EPRA gave us very good assessments. They're ranked very, very highly. But at the same time, as my colleague here spoke, there are questions about how that is reflected on the ground. If you measure that on the ground, does their very high competence levels, does it reflect on the ground? I think there is a question there. So generally, therefore, I thought to conclude by, first of all, talking about one of the things that came up repeatedly, which is the question of data, the need for data, the need for accurate data. Your assessment is only as good as the data you collect. And in collecting data and using data, we must always be very careful of the challenges that come with the Data Protection Act, noting that that Data Protection Act seeks to the happiness of the citizen, and therefore takes us back again to that mantra of focusing on the citizen. Lastly, I thought to ask, at the end of the day, we seek to enhance public value, and the sum total of everything we do should enhance public value. Is there a body within our system that measures indicators, that measure the totality of the work that we've done? So instead of having individual impact assessment, do we have a body that measures the totality of the impact of everything that we have done? Maybe we need to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Simwapigia makofi. Don't leave the stage yet. No, just be seated. Okay, be seated. We want to confirm if we need to conduct a small plenary session, but you'll determine if there is a need of a plenary session depending on the sugar levels. So I'll pose the question. Is as of the many opinion for us to conduct the plenary session, say aye. Is of the contrary opinion, say nay. The nays have it. You can take a seat. But even if the nays have had their day, we are about to get to the place where you'll now spend your per diem, the place where you'll now spend your entertainment allowance, because I know the AIE holders have confirmed that all of you, one or the other, have an entertainment allowance. So I beg none of you should leave this institution. The beauty about it, it's 11 kilometers from here to the gate, and PS Omolo is in the building, so he will be able to do the needful to ensure all of us remain for the sundowner and the bonfire that has already been set. I'm sure by the time Mr. Indimuli told all of you to be upstanding, you saw some chairs being set up on the extreme end, your extreme left. Yes, and for those of you who didn't see, please point your eyes to your extreme left. You've seen there's a bonfire being set, and our area person, PS Mweke, has organized something even grand, but you'll have to spend kidogo. But the beauty about it, we have very able people who are sitting in the front. They'll be able to do the needful as well. And is the chairman of the welfare for today. As you also spend your allowances and your per diem, PS Mweke will be able to mobilize the people who are, this is the point where everyone is busy on their phones, but you know yourselves. Mweke will do the needful. You can't be busy on the phone now, Dr. Oluga. Yes, he will do the needful. So just a raft of announcements, then I'd call PS Mweke to give emerging themes and new learning as we prepare for tomorrow. One of the colleagues who were here have emphasized on one thing. Please, let's go and relook our key performance indices and be able to generate using the tools that have been presented here, including the presentation that was done by CPA Duncan Kichamu, to be able now to give a reflection, a better reflection of the things that are now citizen-centric. So when we retreat, let's go and look at the ones that we are done and now reduce to the ones that will reflect on the interests of the citizens. So just a few announcements to make. Number one, as I stated earlier, let's ensure that all of us have registered. And if you've not, please take a few minutes before you go to the bonfire to be able to register. And number two, tomorrow's session would start promptly at 8:30. So the band, so in case you're living very far, ensure you're here by 8 a.m. and you'll be in good company because the band will start making, didn't you love the band, right? All of you love the band. So it will be here again tomorrow. That is the good news. At no extra cost on your side. Your cost will only be this evening. So please be here at 8. You'll get the entertainment for 30 minutes before we start the session at 8:30. And number three, our host university, SECU, has a tent which has been set out outside. So other than the tent that was set out by the National Syndemic, and we've gotten feedback from the CEO of the National Syndemic that less than 0.5% of you have gone there to visit. I don't know if it's because Gabe said they are doing some kind of a test, but they're also doing those positive ones. So please make a point of visiting their tent, and SECU equally has a tent showcasing what they are offering in the institution. If you get a minute, please pass by that place. And adjacent to that as well, at the gate when you're leaving later in the day, later in the evening, you'll find that the locals are selling some of the products, the artifacts, the things that will make you remember the Southeastern Kenya University and Kitui County at large. Make a point of buying one or two of the items to promote the local economy. They are selling the artifacts and what of you as you exit in the gate. Finally, tomorrow evening, there'll be a bush dinner. So it will not just be the fire, but now there'll be food, because today there'll just be snacks and everything that appertains the snacking. So, but for tomorrow, there'll be bush dinner. So when you come in long-sleeved attire, garments, come in shoes that have high soles, don't come in shoes that can be pricked by the thorns, because you've seen the environment. But KWS will be around. PS Ololtua will ensure the tourism is okay, and PS Musea will also be here to deal with the wildlife tomorrow. So please, tomorrow in the evening we'll be having the bush dinner. Come prepared, come dressed a bit warm, because this place gets a bit cold when you go into the night. And the dress code, as I've said, come dressed appropriately, so that for those of you who have allergies and what have you, and for those of us who need medicine into the evening, tomorrow, even for the ones, everyone now, because we are likely to have people leave this place early, but for tomorrow we'll have the bush dinner. Please come prepared to enjoy and unwind for the evening. At that particular juncture, I wish to call on stage PS Mweke to give the emerging themes and new learning from today's presentations. Then I'll come again in the end just to give a few announcements that I might have left. Karibu sana PS Mweke.
Asante sana, Collins. Allow me to ride on the protocols that were previously established. We've had a very busy day, but also very fruitful, a lot of learning, and I will just take a few more minutes of your time to reflect on what has happened since morning, all the speakers, all the subject matter experts, and everybody who has really given us insights on how to manage our organizations better. The evolving role of regulatory authorities. We've learned that regulation is no longer just about policing and enforcement. Modern regulatory authorities must become facilitators of growth, innovation, investment, and most importantly, public trust. We also heard that strong and responsive regulators are critical pillars in delivering Kenya's bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which is the agenda for this fifth administration led by President William Ruto. Citizens and businesses today expect faster, transparent, technology-driven, and customer-centered services. So those are the three things that should be a take-home for all of us. So what is government's commitment to regulatory reform? Through the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, we've been able to launch the Revitalization and Energization Initiative in July 2023 to transform our 129 regulatory authorities and agencies into proactive development enablers. This initiative seeks to eliminate bureaucracy, improve accountability, strengthen service delivery, and ensure measurable impact to our wananchi. I had somebody call a wananchi here Wanjiko. We're in Kitui, our wananchi is called Mwekali. What has been the progress of this revitalization journey? The first conference we had featured or focused on baseline and institutional reform. The journey began with a baseline survey to identify inefficiencies, inertia, duplication, and delayed service delivery. PSAs were tasked with establishing standing committees to continuously oversee performance and reforms within the regulatory agencies under their purview. The second conference focused on building alignment and responsiveness. We spoke about regulatory resilience, technology adoption, elimination of overlaps and duplication. We also spoke about regulatory responsiveness, compliance efficiency, artificial intelligence and big data integration, and biannual performance reporting and digital transformation. Going forward from today, the third conference on regulatory authorities and agencies, here in Kitui, we have shifted our focus towards measurement, accountability, evaluation of impact, and evidence-based outcomes that wananchi can actually feel on the ground. Lea Kasera said, kwa ground. That's where we must go forward. So importance of effective regulation is that it protects customers. It safeguards public health, ensures quality standards, and builds confidence in Kenya's products and services locally and internationally. Regulatory certainty encourages investment, innovation, exports, and most importantly, job creation. In sectors such as agriculture and livestock, health, environment, ICT, finance, aviation, petroleum, infrastructure, strong regulators are essential for sustainable economic transformation. So it's not just about compliance, it's not just about enforcement, it really is about economic transformation, which is the very agenda of this administration. The role of digital transformation and artificial intelligence. Technology is now center to modern regulation. You saw the innovativeness with NTSA when they said cameras on the road will now begin our enforcement. Although it came to a temporary halt, but that is really where we are going, using technology to be more efficient and effective. Digital platforms, indeed, as you heard from Mr. Indimuli, reduce corruption opportunities, eliminates unnecessary physical interactions, speeds up licensing processes, and improves transparency. Artificial intelligence and data-driven systems can improve compliance monitoring, risk prediction, decision-making, public feedback mechanisms, and indeed service efficiency. So today, henceforth, we are moving from punitive to supportive regulation. Regulators should move from being feared enforcers to trusted partners in development. The shift towards preventive and customer-centric regulation helps citizens and businesses comply more easily while fostering trust between the government and the public. Accountability and performance management. Regulatory agencies must now be judged not only by activities undertaken, but by measurable impact and outcomes. I think you heard Alex Mwaniki say that many, many times. Measurable impact and outcomes. The public should clearly feel and appreciate the value of regulatory institutions through improved services, efficiency, safety, and economic. Colleagues, here is feel. We heard that we have to move from the public seeing us to feeling us. That's where the impact and the outcomes come in. In conclusion, the future of regulation in Kenya lies in building institutions that are agile. Regulatory authorities, all of us here, must become engines of economic transformation, innovation, and public trust, and definitely not become barriers to growth. Ladies and gentlemen, and my colleagues, those are the reflections we can feel us, and so that we can also grow our economy, and only by growing our economy is how we can create jobs and Asanteni sana, have a good evening, and I look forward to interacting with many of you this evening. Asanteni sana. Thank you.